Retirees who are feeling the pinch of higher prices, there could be a much bigger Social Security COLA next year. An estimate from the Senior Citizens League finds that 2023 cost of living adjustments could be as high as 7.6%, based on the latest Consumer Price Index data. In comparison, the Social Security COLA for 2022 in January was 5.9%, the highest bump in 40 years. Data released found that the Consumer Price Index for all urban consumers notched a new 40-year high, with an increase of 7.9% over the past 12 months. The Social Security COLA is based on another measure, the Consumer Price Index for urban wage earners and clerical workers. The Consumer Price Index, everybody, for urban wage earners and clerical workers is a more general index that tracks retail prices that all consumers pay. The CPIW, on the other hand, is a more specialized measure of the retail prices, affecting urban hourly wage earners and clerical workers. To be sure, the official COLA for next year will not be determined by the SSA until October. But everybody, much of how next year's high COLA actually turns out to be will depend on inflation, and that could push the COLA lower than the current estimate. Price moderation could provide relief for retirees and other seniors who are grappling with higher consumer costs. The Senior Citizens League found that 5.9% of COLA for 2022 is already falling short for many retirees. The average retiree benefit is currently around $1,564. According to the Senior Citizens League, as of March, the benefit would need to be $1,698 to keep up with an 8.6% year-over-year increase. To date, there's a total of $107 shortfall in benefits for the average retiree. So, a policy analyst for Social Security and Medicare said that Social Security is not intended to replace all of a person's income in retirement. In order to adjust for inflation, retirees will likely have to draw down extra money from a pension or on other investments to make up the difference for record high costs. So if you feel like Social Security does not provide enough income to meet your basic needs, you're not alone on this. SSI, everybody, to receive additional benefit on this could help on top of your Social Security check. And the April 18th tax deadline is quickly approaching. This gives taxpayers just one more month to file their taxes. On the flip side, tens of millions of people, everybody, have already received their tax refunds from the IRS. According to the IRS, if you file your tax return electronically and use direct deposit, you should get your refund in about 21 days. Even if you do something right, you could still find yourself waiting for your money to arrive from the IRS. The 3-week estimate might be accurate for the average tax filer, but a variety of factors might hold up your tax refund. When you file your tax return, it's important to cross-check any information that you filed, including to make sure it's accurate. For instance, don't mix up the numbers of state taxes withheld with federal taxes before you submit your tax to the IRS. Simply take a second look to fix any potential errors, and make sure that you filled out each field. Also, if you received the child tax credit payments last year, just make sure the amount on letter 6419 matches the amount you received. If an incorrect amount is entered, the IRS will definitely have to contact you.
Kentucky, Mr. Barr is now recognized for 5 minutes.
Dr. Goodspeed, as the title of this hearing suggests, my friends on the other side of the aisle want to blame higher prices on everything but their own policies. They blame it on supply chain bottlenecks. They blame it on COVID, and they even blame it on corporate greed. And I want to focus on that last narrative for a minute, corporate greed. Let me tell you how it works in the real world, and I'll give you an example from my own district where businesses are struggling with the cost of higher inflation. The Suffaletta family in Georgetown, Kentucky, have been in the retail home furnishings business since the late 1940s. In a conversation last week, they informed me that in the last 18 months, the cost of goods from their manufacturers have increased 30 to 40%, and they're still receiving price increase letters every week. They're also experiencing price increases on sold orders that have not even been produced yet, but they aren't going back to their customers asking for more money than what they agreed to at the time of placing those orders. That's an important point. They're not sitting around the table trying to figure out how to exploit their customers. They're struggling because their profit margins are down because the cost of their inputs are going up. Instead, the Suffalettas are choosing to absorb those additional costs, contrary to what Mr. Drummond's narrative is. They're choosing to absorb them. And like most small businesses, their cost of labor and overhead have gone up over 25%. So now they're having to determine how to operate without passing all of those costs onto the end consumer and still have some profit at the end of the year. This idea of businesses trying to exploit this and profiteer is offensive to most small firms in America today. Now, Stephen Ratner, a former Obama Treasury official, summed it up perfectly. Blaming inflation on supply lines is like complaining about your sweater keeping you too warm after you've added several logs to the fireplace. The original sin was the $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan passed in March. The bill, almost completely unfunded, sought to counter the effects of the pandemic by focusing on demand-side stimulus rather than on investment, and that has contributed materially to today's inflation levels. So, Dr. Goodspeed, you focused on the increase in aggregate demand, but I want you to elaborate on your testimony about how the American Rescue Plan also constrained the supply side. Specifically, talk about how the American Rescue Plan stifled the labor supply.
Well,
which is contributing to the problem that the Cephaletta family is having right now.
Well, thank you, Congressman. And to your observation about what you're hearing from businesses, we have over the past year seen the producer price index outpaced by a considerable margin the consumer price index, which suggests or implies that firms have been taking that pressure out of margin.
The process as quickly as possible, or underway. Biden said he plans to announce his nominee soon. Democratic aides have already indicated that the Majority Leader, Chuck Schumer, will try to follow a confirmation timeline close to that of Supreme Court Justice Amy Coney Barrett. A nomination will be followed by confirmation hearings from the Senate Judiciary Committee, and eventually a confirmation vote on the Senate floor. So while nothing prevents the White House from trying to get the spending package finished before the Supreme Court votes, it would definitely be a challenge to do so. It's important to remember that most Democrats want to see a version of the Build Back Better passed as soon as possible. When asked about whether there were concerns that the Supreme Court nomination process would complicate other legislative priorities, like the Build Back Better, White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki said, "We are entirely capable of doing more things at once." So there's a lot of things going on, a lot of progress being made, but lawmakers are making time to complete negotiations on what should be included and removed from Biden's Build Back Better bill. Progressives this week have pressed Biden and Senate Democrats to ensure that it passes before the State of the Union address. A revised measure will need to pass both the House and Senate. In case of the climate and social spending bill, which the Senate intends to pass using budget reconciliation, Biden needs to have the backing of all 50 Democratic senators. But the good news, everybody, is that Joe Manchin will eventually support the Build Back Better bill. People believe that Joe Manchin is gettable on a revised Build Back Better package. And people think they can get the job done with Joe Manchin on their side.
Madam President, on Friday, our country received another extraordinary bit of news about the state of our economic recovery. Last month, the economy created 467,000 new jobs, far exceeding all expectations. This comes on the heels of news that our economy grew